Hello, welcome to our discussion on EU blockchain, what next? Eva Kaili, you're an MEP, one of the most prominent voices on blockchain within the European Parliament. I'd also like to welcome Ludovic Courcelas, lead on EU Blockchain Observatory, which has been going since 2018. So, Eva, you've been a key member of the European Parliament's Committee on Research and Industry, and you've taken a keen interest in artificial intelligence issues in particular. So what role will blockchain play in a Europe that is fit for a digital age? One of the big priorities of the new Commission.
Thank you for having me and for a very interesting discussion. So I think that Europe has already shown that has a very friendly to innovation approach and also to positive disruption. So we saw other governments when they heard about blockchain to be much more resistant and much more cautious on how to proceed. But I think since we had like the compass there that we know where we want to go, we want to use the technologies to benefit citizens, we want to solve problems. I think this has been from the start the approach that we had, and I think we will continue like that. We have established the European Observatory Forum and has done an excellent work because I think it's a hybrid European observatory that manages to create an interface between politicians and all the stakeholders to help us with legislation, to follow the technology and the development of the technology, because still the technology itself faces a lot of issues like scalability, interoperability, and initial architecture of the blockchains, and of course challenges that that this technology could have in terms of cybersecurity, and also how much decentralization and also common definitions. So I think we are at the point where we are seeing the first result of our efforts, and I think that in the future we will try to have a more strategic legal certainty in order to allow innovation to scale up even more, because at this point we're testing more like pilots and we are trying to see the potential that this technology has.
And Ludovic, I mean, you've been taking a lead on the EU Observatory and Forum on blockchain. I mean, initially, there's a lot of question marks about blockchain. Is it just hype? I mean, I certainly think of Bitcoin when I think of blockchain, but you know, should we be thinking in a wider way about it? And do you think that your forum is doing this?
Yeah, definitely. So it has been very interesting during the last 2 years with the observatory to monitor and look at the trend and really the evolution of the technology. And as you know, blockchain technology is a very fast-moving technology. And so we have seen a dramatic evolution during the course of the last 2 to 3 years. I think that just before the start of the observatory, that was really the time you had a lot of discussions around cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin, like you were mentioning. And so this was really, the full ecosystem was really crypto-oriented. And this has really evolved during the years. And so some of the best examples probably are when in 2018 and 2019, when the first large corporations started to experiment using blockchain technology, running proof of concepts, internal proof of concepts, in order to make sure that the potential benefits of the technology were true and would be usable for them. And what we are currently seeing at the moment is the result of this, which is that we currently see live projects coming live and in very different industries, whether that be in trade finance, banking, healthcare, supply chain, everything that is related also to the UN SDGs has seen a dramatic development. And so we see really the maturation of the full ecosystem, which is very exciting.
When you're looking at the technology and how it will develop, it's something that comes up again and again in so many different fields in Europe is how do we prevent market fragmentation? How do we regulate for everybody so that we have a single market in this particular question? And so I'm just wondering, what are you looking at? Because it seems to me from what you say that it will touch on so many issues. It will touch on, you know, renewable energy. It will touch on e-health. It will touch on, you know, financial transactions. So do you have to keep an overarching view of thousands of pieces of legislation?
Yeah, definitely. So you're right. That's really a daunting task. However, it needs to be done. So I think that what is important to highlight is that you have two main challenges. The first one, which is technical. If you want to avoid at all costs fragmentation, you need to encourage interoperability from a technical point of view between the different projects, because at some point, if you have a project that is more related to supply chain, but still you will need to have some payments system in there, you will need to have interactions between potentially two separate projects. And so you need to encourage developers and engineers to work on standards that could be reused across the industry in order to answer that question. So that's the first aspect, but obviously the second challenge is more the regulatory side. And here I think that the first step is to create a shared understanding and a common understanding. And so this is really what the Observatory and Forum has done for the last 2 years, creating content, creating knowledge, creating information that everyone in Europe, every single MEP, every single citizen could rely on in order to get information about blockchain technology, how it works, how it can be applied, and what are the regulatory challenges, so that later on the regulatory work could be done properly. So I think that was really the first step, and what we focused on with the Observatory and Forum. And then there is more the harmonization aspect, which is more about getting everyone together and making sure that all the European member states work together. But what we have seen with the Observatory and Forum is that there is a strong commitment from the EU and member states to work like that.
Is Europe leading on this, or is it catching up with other countries?
I think that Europe has a very strong position. And we are currently, so the first element is that if you look at the observatory itself, which is what I can talk about really, it is a unique initiative. Like, there is no comparison outside around the world of similar initiatives of that scale that aim at looking at the legal and regulatory framework, looking at the different use cases, looking at how this will impact the different citizens, what is the social impact, the economic impact. And so this is very singular. So I would definitely say that Europe is leading in terms of knowledge and understanding of the technology. And then when it comes to implementations, I think that we have seen very strong development within Europe. So we have mapped, for example, more than 800 initiatives within Europe that could be startups initiatives, corporate initiatives, government initiatives that are all working on blockchain technology. So you can see that there is a lot of emulation, there is a lot of innovation within the European ecosystem, and also there is a lot of research that is undertaken at the European level, research that will ultimately translate into actual projects and actual solutions. So I definitely think that Europe has a strong position.
And Eva, do you believe that, we've just heard about all these different separate projects taking place, and some of them will hopefully yield interesting results or useful applications, but is there a method at a European level to maybe roll out that expertise, that sharing of best knowledge? Obviously you have the forum itself, but is there another means in which there could be a greater uptake of these technologies and greater understanding?
Yes, so the European Blockchain Forum has the biggest task, like to understand the technology, to provide us with like recommendations. We have to legislate quite fast. We have to be able to understand the technology and not to try to fit it in old boxes, like try to talk about like tokens as securities or commodities or like payments. We have to also create new hybrid solutions and in terms of legislation. We also have tried to work on setting up a consortium of the biggest players there, the NATPA, which is also helping us a lot to have them, exchanging best practices and being in touch with us also, and giving us their aspect, or the problems that they face, so that we can remove the friction that exists. And one thing that I think was missing, but we have to get it right, is also the blockchain services infrastructure framework that we have, the EBSI. So trying to have 27 member states to develop their own regulatory framework to enable crypto assets, and including security and commodity tokens and cryptocurrencies and stable coins to be used in a European level. So I think this is a great initiative, and legislation is it's coming after summer, which means we try to harmonize a bit the environment, because indeed Europe is leading in terms of like having an innovative friendly approach, trying to keep the technological neutrality, but at the same time we haven't managed to achieve the digital single market, and the sandbox is there that we definitely need to allow a bigger scale-ups and bigger tests of these amazing pilots that already are growing in Europe. So I think by having pilots there, by having projects that we are funding or co-funding with Europe, it's a big step. And I would say that with that terms, we are actually leading, because you have a governmental body that is like trying to use these technologies to benefit citizens in terms of certification, identity, voting, for taxation, for payments, which means that we are trying to have a leap forward faster than other governments, and we are supporting this technology to have access to the public sector. I'm not sure I have seen that in this volume anywhere else, and but I know we have to also keep going to the same direction, and make sure we will not create friction from people that they are a bit scared of disrupting positively the system, the traditional system.
Blockchain help actors respect people's data and their privacy, indeed.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, it's very funny, because at the very beginning, when we looked at this topic of blockchain and the GDPR, our main focus was, okay, those two seems to be a bit contradictory in the way that the technology works and in the way that the regulations is working also. But actually what we did was, most of our work with the observatory was clarifying some of the legal uncertainties that were there. And what we actually saw in the end was that there was absolutely no contradiction between the GDPR and blockchain technology, and that there was many technical and implementation ways to make it work. And also that blockchain could be used, as you said, in order to strengthen the application of the GDPR. And I think that one of the most exciting example of this is when you take data that is belonging to citizens, and that you as a citizen would need to share with a company because you need to access a service or something like that. Actually, blockchain could be used in order to record the fact that you have been sharing data with this entity or with this platform. And at any time, the citizen could say, okay, I no longer want to have this platform hold my data. I want to exercise my right to erasure. And so the citizen through a platform would be deleting the right of the platform to hold the data, and making the application easier for everyone, also for the companies, because applying the right to be forgotten can be sometimes a bit difficult for the different companies. Here with the blockchain, we have a shared record where everyone agrees, okay, you are allowed to have my data for this period of time. And once I said, no, I don't want you to have my data, it is stored in a way that everyone agrees upon.
That brings me back to the issue of security. There were certainly some concerns, and again, cryptocurrencies come to mind, where people were concerned about it being used in all sorts of ways for money laundering, or hiding of criminal proceeds and things like that. Do you think this is an issue, or has this been resolved?
You're asking the question to me?
Yes, Ludovic, yes.
Sure. So I think that's a very legitimate concern, and that's a point actually that we looked upon. So anti-money laundering, of course, is very important, and everything that is related to financing, for example, terrorism, as being looked upon. I think that what we have concluded is that blockchain is only a technology, and that it can be used the right way or the bad way. And the way that we see the development of the regulation there is that blockchain actually offers a very strong audit trail of everything that happens between the different actors. And so at some point, if you want to have a look and make sure that everything is clean, everything has been properly handled, actually blockchain is the best technology to do that.
And Eva, you're on the Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee. We see that the European Central Bank now is looking at digital currencies more. Do you and your fellow MEPs welcome this development, or are you cautious?
Yes, of course. So everything that could benefit citizens by exploring new technologies, it's more than welcome. And I think that it's a tool, it's a technology that depends how you use it, you can do good or bad. The story of Libra that came up a year ago was actually the catalyst and accelerated things to happen more fast, because we already knew that the European Central Bank was looking at Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but now we have to move much faster because also we have more users and we have more need to establish legal certainty and the legal framework. Also because I think that the central banks, they realize that even if they don't, have a crypto euro, that they are also actually test now the potential and the possibility of having a crypto euro. They're also checking how they could use blockchain internally in order to remove friction, bureaucracy, to have more cryptography, faster payment settlements. And I think that the potential there is huge in the payment system, insurance, for digital tax. So I welcome it, and I think we should move even faster, because the will of the European Parliament has actually been impressive. When I was drafting my first resolution on blockchain, and everybody thought they were just like, crypto anarchists and terrorists using Bitcoin, and they couldn't see the amazing technology that was there. It was not easy to remove this misperception, but still we had a huge support. We had all the parties and all the MEPs were actually supporting the very positive disruption that was coming with this technology.
Do you think that there will be a keener sense within the Parliament about how important this issue is, and especially with the new Commission looking forward to a digital age?
Well, yes. So I remember 5 years ago, which is not, so far, we were talking about blockchain, and I had to try to explain it. There were 5 MEPs that could understand it. So I had to explain in order to get consensus, and everybody thought it was also from the developers side, they thought they had the solution to everything. So we had a solution that was looking for a problem. I think now we are at the more mature age of blockchain, where we're actually understanding the limitations or the problems of the technology, but also, as Ludovic said, where the convergence with amazing exponential technologies is happening, so especially with artificial intelligence. So at the point where we face a pandemic and we understand that that these challenges, the global challenges, cannot be stopped by borders, we have to move much faster for the digital single market. And this means we have to also have a common definition of data sets and common standards for data sets and the use of the data sets, because this is also the fuel for these technologies to create value. So I think we are at this point where we have to prove that there is value, and we have to invest also into solving real problems, and again, not trying to find solutions that could fit any problem and then look for the problem. So I think we are entering this exciting period where the Commission itself reprioritize the MFF, so the budget for the next 8 years, by saying that instead of having a budget line, like we were talking about the artificial intelligence and the green plan as a hype, but then the budget leading to that was like really, really small. So now suddenly green tech and AI, it's becoming the prism under which we see everything. So I feel that we will have an acceleration of digitalization and the use of AI. In maybe even the, not just to predict or to give autonomy to hardware and robots, but also for machine learning to diagnose and prevent diseases, for treatment, for healthcare, for in the finance sector, in the transportation and mobility. So I think we start using it to improve our quality of life, and we will focus mostly on the good side, because until now everybody's like a bit cautious and maybe defensive when they hear about disruption. I think we're realizing that technology is the tool for us to overcome these global challenges together. So we need to have a common global vocabulary there, and to agree on standards and principles that will allow us to take it to the next step.
Thank you very much, Ludovic. Thank you very much indeed, Eva, for that overview. And I'll really look forward to hearing more about